A familiar NASCAR name will make her Cup Series debut at Talladega, Ford teases their version of the next-gen car, and NASCAR on ice? What are they doing over there? How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric and welcome to Out of the Groove. We've got some fun stuff to react to today. We're also gonna look at the current Cup Series playoff picture. Some big names well below the cut line, some surprises inside the top 16. I know we're only 8 races in, but we'll talk about which of those trends we're buying versus selling this early in the year. But before we get to all of that, we have to thank today's sponsor, Wenzel's Farm, a provider of high quality, handcrafted, small batch meat snacks and products. Real meat for real life. No fillers, no corn syrup, no artificial colors or flavors, none of that stuff. They have over 13 varieties of snack sticks, including mango habanero flavored and bacon cheddar. I'm a big fan of that one, but they also recently introduced a premium line of beef jerky products. Gluten-free, I haven't actually given these a try yet. Oh, let the smell overcome you. That's pretty good. You can get some of this for yourself using a special promo code for fans of Out of the Groove. Use code FUEL for 20% off at wenzelsfarm.com. Shift your taste buds into high gear with the winning flavors of Wenzel's Farm's protein-packed snack sticks and beef jerky. It's the perfect pit stop snack to keep you fueled all the way to the finish line. Again, use code FUEL for 20% off at wenzelsfarm.com. Now, I've gotten a lot of requests the last couple of weeks from you guys to look at the point standings, begin talking about the playoff picture, things like that. We're gonna do that in today's episode at the end, but before we get to that, we've got some fun stories, some very interesting stories to react to. Let's begin with Jennifer Jo Cobb. That's right, Jennifer Jo Cobb will make her Cup Series debut at Talladega in less than 2 weeks. The longtime Truck Series veteran will drive the number 15 for Rick Ware Racing. It's been a long time coming. Jennifer Jo Cobb is 48 years old. She's been racing in trucks since 2008. Her one and only career top 10 came at a super speedway, Daytona, in 2011, so best of luck to her at Talladega. Hey, as long as she doesn't scare the field the way Derek Cope did in that 15 car back at Daytona, I will consider this a win for her. Still a cool story, will be something to watch at Talladega here in just a couple of weeks. Another story, well, a tweet that was put out today. You know, we still have a few weeks until NASCAR is officially going to reveal the Ford, Chevy, and Toyota next-gen looks, but Ford's trying to jump the gun, getting a little antsy over here. Ford Performance put this tweet out, a brief onboard clip from their Ford Mustang next-gen car, supposedly, running a lap at Martinsville. Here's what that, most importantly, what that sounded like. You still don't get a good view of the car, but the sound is noteworthy. Yeah, very clear audio. You can hear that the next-gen car, it's deeper. The tone of the engine is just lower than the current Gen 6 cars. At least that's what I'm hearing. Maybe it's just the video, maybe I'm crazy, but that's what it sounds like to me. These are reportedly the same engines that the Gen 6 cars are running, so it all has to do with how the exhaust is outfitted, how it's configured. That's what's creating that slightly deeper tone. I'm sure the new shifter and what they have, 5 gears now? They're gonna have 5th gear in the Cup Series cars, I believe, at every track. That perhaps is playing a role as well, but definitely, you can hear from that clip, the new car does sound a little different, distinct compared to the Gen 6. I like the deeper tone personally. I mean, I do miss sort of the years of like the early 2000s when if you go back and watch like a super speedway race from like 2004, one, TV back in the day had the engine audio I think cranked higher than they do today, so I kind of miss that. But two, it feels like the wail of the engines is a bit louder. The buzz of the pack rocketing by the cameras, by the microphones, that's distinct. That sounds so pretty. This next gen car definitely gonna sound different than that, but different isn't necessarily always a bad thing. I don't mind the deeper tone, but we'll see what it sounds like once we get a pack of these things on track together. Let me know how you guys think that Ford Mustang sounds down in the comments below. Now we gotta talk about this goofy story that I've been seeing shared all over social media today. The NASCAR Euro Series posted some clips and some photos of them testing one of their cars on ice, in the snow. You can see the clips right here. Look at this thing. Taking, slipping, and sliding to a whole nother level. Now, I'll be the first to admit I do not follow the NASCAR Euro Series closely really at all. Reportedly though, this is the first time they have tested one of their cars in icy, snowy conditions like this. I just love NASCAR on ice. It's like, you know, Disney on ice. Now it's NASCAR on ice. You get drivers out there. Joey Logano doing little jumps and spins for the judges. Figure skating. How about that? Forget about bringing the pit crew competition back to All-Star Weekend. Let's get the figure skating competition. Never mind. This is not a funny gag, but yes, NASCAR on ice. NBC Sports posted an article about this test, and apparently the guy driving this car during the test was the president and CEO of the NASCAR Euro Series. There's Steve Phelps, there's Jim France out there testing the race car. That's different than how it would happen here in the States. Jerome Galpin was behind the wheel. Here's some of what he had to say about this test. We have to see what's the next step, but for sure, this was a very special day. It doesn't matter the surface you drive on, the shape of the track, or the kind of driver you are, the pure racing character of the Euro NASCAR car is contagious, and you will not want to stop driving it. It is probably among the most versatile race cars ever built, able to race on every track and every surface in every condition. The level of performance is also pretty impressive. With only one day of testing, we were able to set one of the fastest times around the track for a rear-wheel drive car. So yeah, you thought this was just a photo op. No, they're testing this because I guess in the Euro NASCAR series, they might actually race on ice in the not so distant future. The same way the American NASCAR Cup Series has been testing, you know, rain tires at Martinsville. Euro NASCAR's got even bigger tricks up their sleeve, my goodness. Again, apologies to those of you who do follow the NASCAR Euro Series. I'm really not familiar with it. I understand it can get quite cold in certain parts, many parts of Europe, so perhaps this makes a lot of sense. I know ice racing is a thing that exists. I mean, not within NASCAR. NASCAR has not done it, but I know there are series in North America, like especially up north, especially up in Canada. I know that there are race cars that race on ice. That's a whole thing. So I know it's not a total pipe dream. I know it's not impossible, but it certainly captured my attention, and it just shows that not only here in the States is NASCAR trying to innovate, is NASCAR completely changing and trying very new things. Even across the pond, they're trying some pretty wild and wacky stuff. Hey, if the NASCAR Euro Series actually does race on ice, that's something that I don't know where to watch it or how to get it. I'm gonna wanna see that. Anyway, I don't expect any ice racing coming to NASCAR in the United States anytime soon, but I thought that was a fun story to share with you guys and react to together. Now, let's talk about the American NASCAR Cup Series, because we are 8 races into this season. It's a 26 race regular season, 36 races total, the final 10 being the playoffs. We're 8 races in, and the playoff picture is beginning to take shape. Martin Truex Jr. this past weekend became the first 2-time winner, which vaulted him basically to the top of the playoff grid. Denny Hamlin right now is running away with the regular season championship. He has a 73-point lead over the second place driver. He does not have a win yet this season, but Hamlin with his 7 top 5s in 8 races, crazy, crazy numbers. He's racking up points like nobody's business. Some drivers who did not qualify for the playoffs this year have already virtually locked themselves in with a win. Michael McDowell, Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell. And if we look at the playoff picture right now, a couple other drivers like Chris Buescher, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. are currently inside the top 16 despite not making the playoffs last year either. You can see right there, Alex Bowman, who made a deep playoff run last year, is currently the first guy out. Newman, Bubba, Ryan Preece round out the top 20. Matt DiBenedetto, who made the playoffs last year, is back in 22nd. We've documented the SHR car struggles, but Cole Custer, who made the playoffs last year, is 24th. Briscoe, remember that 14 did make the playoffs last year. He's 27th, and Eric Almirola, of course, 28th in points. So a lot of playoff drivers from 2020 struggling to begin 2021. But we're only 8 races in, so the question is, how many of these storylines so far are legitimate? Is Ricky Stenhouse Jr. really a playoff contender? I mean, he's what, 14th in points right now? Is he gonna stay there? Is that legit? I don't know. Eric Almirola, all the way down there in 28th. He's gotta pick things up eventually, right? They've gotta start showing speed. This is the same guy that had, what, 9 straight top 10s at one point last year? I'm sure they'll pick things up and put their name into playoff contention. Right? It's all a guessing game right now, but we are able to at least make educated guesses at this point based on these first 8 races. Which of those storylines is legit? Which drivers are gonna stay where they're at? Which drivers have gotten off to uncharacteristically good or bad starts? Which ones are the flukes to begin the season? That's what I'm going to share my opinion on here today. So let's begin with the storylines I'm buying to start this year. These are the stories, these are the performances that I think are perfectly legit, that I think will continue throughout this season. I'll tell you this right now, I am buying Chris Buescher to start this year. Right now he sits 15th on the playoff grid, only one top 10, but you'll remember he won a stage at Homestead, Miami, led more than 50 laps in that race. Chris Buescher since the Daytona 500 has not finished outside the top 20. I'm fully buying what I'm seeing right now. Is he going to make the playoffs? I mean, that is a tall order, but he is certainly going to be in contention. His teammate Ryan Newman is just a couple spots below him in 18th. It's clear Roush Fenway Racing has taken a step forward since last year. Last year was a total disappointment. I think last year was also sort of tumultuous, obviously with the pandemic, but Ryan Newman getting injured at Daytona, missing a few races, and never quite getting back to his 2019 and earlier self. Last year was a weird year. They seem to have gotten their feet underneath them this season. All of Roush Fenway looks a little bit better. Chris Buescher is leading the way, 15th in points. I think he'll stick around there for quite some time and perhaps be a true playoff contender come August and September. Keep an eye on Chris Buescher. I'm liking what I'm seeing. Another driver that I'm buying right now, or at least that I'm optimistic for here in the coming weeks and months, Bubba Wallace. I know everyone's polarized. Everyone has a different take on Bubba Wallace. He's 19th in points right now, but things are trending in the right direction for him. They're progressively getting faster and faster as the season goes on. They're still searching for their first top 10, but at least the last 3 or 4 races, they have shown glimpses of top 10 speed. At Phoenix, they had a top 10, maybe a top 5 run going until a questionable pit decision put them in a vulnerable spot. At Bristol Dirt, they were running up inside the top 10 until a late race spin, a late race incident. And then Martinsville, they led some laps, partially due to some varying, alternative pitch strategy, but he hung out in the top 10 for a while until late in the race faded, and I believe finished 16th again. And they finished 16th like 3 times this year. But things are clearly trending in the right direction. They need to figure out their speed at the bigger tracks, because it looks like their speed on the 1 mile and shorter tracks is pretty darn good. They got to figure out the intermediates, but if they're able to do that, Bubba Wallace is going to continue moving up the leaderboard. I picked him at the beginning of this year to be the first guy out of the playoffs. With SHR's early struggles this season, I think Bubba Wallace is certainly going to have a strong chance of making the playoffs in his first year with 2311. Things are trending in the right direction early on. I'm buying the trend that team is on. Now, one team that I am buying at the start of this season, but not for a good reason, is Stewart-Haas Racing. I'm not going to dwell on SHR for a whole nother video. I did that last week. But right now, aside from Kevin Harvick, who we all just know he's great, he's keeping that team almost single-handedly in the top 10 in points, the rest of SHR, they look lost, like a bunch of chickens with their heads cut off. Cole Custer, 24th on the playoff grid, Briscoe, 27th, Almirola back in 28th, a whopping 85 points behind 16th place on the playoff grid. At this point, I'm buying it. I do not think SHR gets all of those teams figured out over the course of this regular season as we get into the summer months. They clearly lost the handle on what made them so great last season. There's been talks about potential rules changes or at least some slight adjustments in the inspection process NASCAR made over the course of the offseason that have hindered one of SHR's strongest advantages last year. Rodney Childers has suggested that that is the key thing holding that team back. Obviously, the 4 team is still a top 10 team most weeks, but the rest of SHR, less experienced drivers, less talented drivers, let's just be honest, are not having the success Kevin Harvick is having. Harvick will make the playoffs this year because he and Rodney Childers are that freaking good. I cannot say the same for Cole Custer, Chase Briscoe, or Eric Almirola. I mean, at this rate, especially for Briscoe and Almirola, we're talking about must-win scenario. And Eric Almirola has won one race in his 4 years almost with SHR. I don't see Eric Almirola getting a win this season in a clutch, must-win scenario. So I'm buying that SHR may really be an outside the top 20 points team this year, at least as far as those 3 teams are concerned. Again, Harvick is just that good. He's on his own level. But I'm not feeling great about the SHR cars, so I'm buying that to start this season. Now let's talk about the storylines that I'm not believing, that I'm not buying. I'm selling these storylines early on this year. I think these are the flukes. Let's start with Alex Bowman, currently 17th in points. He made the playoffs last season, obviously got a win early in the year in 2020. This year, he's clearly lagging behind the rest of his Hendrick Motorsports teammates, but not always due to lack of speed or lack of talent. A lot of cases, it's been just frankly bad luck. Like Bristol Dirt had a top 5 run going when team just lost 4th gear, mechanical failure. Martinsville last week, and they had, a loose wheel issue? Bowman had one of his best runs of the season going there until that point. So Alex Bowman, while has not consistently had the speed that Kyle Larson, for example, has had, they've also had way more bad luck than their teammates have had. And despite that bad luck, he's still sitting 17th on the playoff grid, just 5 points out of the top 16 at this point. So Alex Bowman will trend into the top 16. I do not believe that this slow start will be indicative of the 48's entire season. So expect Bowman to make the playoffs. I still think there's a great shot he wins a race before the playoffs. I don't think he's going to sit 17th in points all season long, so I'm not buying that at all. Similar, but maybe to a lesser extent, I'm going to talk about Daniel Suarez, who currently sits 23rd in points. Remember, he got fined, or 10 points, docked 10 points for his crew chief, Travis Mack, putting ballast, unapproved ballast in the jack post at Martinsville last week, and actually he got suspended for that race as well. So this team just needs to clean some of those things up. They're a brand new team. They've already stood out in a couple of races this year, most notably Bristol Dirt, where he led a bunch of laps and contended for the win late. Coming into this season, if you told me Daniel Suarez would be sitting 23rd in points, I would have said, yeah, that's about what I would have expected. But based on the speed, again, kind of like 23-11, based on the trends recently, they seem to be getting a little bit faster week in, week out. I think Daniel Suarez and the 99 team will crack the top 20 in points. I think come September, August, they will be on the bubble. They'll be within striking distance. They just got to clean some of these things up. They can't be getting penalties like that dock them in important points. They got to finish races. They can't have mechanical or pit road issues during the race, which have plagued them at times this year. It's a new team, but they're only going to figure that stuff out even better as the season goes on. So, while 23rd in points right now isn't terrible for a brand new team, that's actually pretty good. I think it's going to get better. So we'll see what happens, but that's my prediction for the 99 team. Imagine if Daniel Suarez, a guy who's raced for Joe Gibbs Racing, Stewart Haas Racing, imagine he finally makes the playoffs in a Trackhouse car, a brand new team. That would be pretty surprising, but I wouldn't say it's impossible at this rate. Now, there is one strong start to this season that I'm not buying. I'm not going to say Michael McDowell. He did win the Daytona 500. He's dropped to like 16th in traditional points right now. He's still going to make the playoffs, so I'm not going to pick on Michael McDowell. He's going to make the playoffs more than likely. Instead, I hate to do this, but I'm not buying Ricky Stenhouse Jr.'s hot start to the season. Now, one impressive stat, though, to note about Ricky Stenhouse is through these first 8 races, he has not finished worse than 18th. Now, he only has one top 10. It was that second place run at Bristol Dirt, but very, very consistent start to the season for Ricky Stenhouse Jr. He currently sits 14th in points. He has a small gap above the playoff cut line, but unfortunately, when we look at some of those drivers in the back end of the playoffs at the moment, Stenhouse, Chris Buescher, I have a feeling Stenhouse will be the first driver to drop out of playoff contention. One, I'm not sure I believe JTG Doherty has the resources to keep up with some of these teams, but two, I mentioned how Chris Buescher earlier had led a bunch of laps, won a stage at Homestead, Miami. He's been really consistent and he's seen the front of the field at times. Stenhouse has been consistent, but he's only led one lap all season long. So he's not running up front. He's not really contending for wins. I know he was within striking distance at Bristol, but he's not running up front as consistently as Chris Buescher. Stenhouse is just avoiding the catastrophic race. He's just sitting there comfortably in 13th, 14th, 15th and finishing there, which is really, really good, really, really strong, but I don't know how long that is going to last, especially as the season goes on. The good, big teams are going to figure out how to find some extra speed. I think JTG Doherty is going to be one of the first teams to start to teeter and fade a little bit. Ryan Preece with a couple of top 10s early got off to a hot start as well. He's already back, I think 20th in the points and likely going to fall from there as we go forward. And that team, of course, doesn't have funding for the full season at this point. Stenhouse does, but I don't think that 47 car is going to stay in the top 16 in points throughout the summer. I think they will fade. I don't think Stenhouse makes the playoffs this year unless he grabs a win, say at a super speedway, which he has been known to do. I'm going to leave it at that. We've talked a lot about the playoff picture today. Let me know what you guys think of some of my predictions I made right there. I look forward to reading your responses, but that is going to do it for today's episode. Be sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel. We talk NASCAR news, notes. Sometimes I give you guys my opinions daily here on this channel. As always, a huge thank you to my amazing Patreon supporters as well. Couldn't do this show without your continued support. Thank you again to Wenzel's Farm for supporting Out of the Groove. Use code FUEL for 20% off your order at wenzelsfarm.com. Check that link out down in the description. I will see you all again perhaps later this week. It's been a busy, busy week. We've got some racing action planned for Richmond. I will see you all again very, very soon. Take care. I'll see you in the next episode.